Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name's Terry. I am the event manager for Renaissance and Geo Education. It's lovely that you're joining us this afternoon. Do tell us in chat where you're joining us from today. That would be great. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping slides while we wait for some more people to join us, and then I'll be handing over to our presenters for today. So just sharing our mission statement here. I'm sure you've seen it before. But just a couple of little points to note. If you are having some audio difficulty, please do check the audio settings. You can see that at the bottom. And you are going to be muted on arrival, so you will not be able to unmute yourself. We will be using chat and Q&A for interactivity today. The event will be recorded and will be available in the coming days, and you'll also receive an email as well with any sort of links or presentations that are available in this session that will also be shared. I mentioned today that we are going to be using some interactivity, so you have the Q&A and chat function. We ask that any questions for Russell and Peter today will go in the Q&A. We are expecting quite a high number of people, so we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. But you also can use the chat function for anything else. So questions in the Q&A and chat for anything else. If you're having issues hearing or you have any other sort of, or the interactivity in today's session, use chat. But any questions, so we can manage those, please do put them into the Q&A. In the chat box, you'll see a little section that says to. You can select host and panelists. You can use that just to contact us directly, the team that are presenting today. But if you want to just see everyone's message or everyone see your message, you do need to select everyone. So if you wouldn't mind defaulting it to everyone, that would be amazing. We're just going to be starting in a couple of minutes or in just a minute's time. I just wanted to raise a couple of events that were happening in the UAE. You may have seen these already. Do scan the QR code. There is unfortunately one happening tomorrow, so there is still time to register if you haven't already. And we do have a conference in Dubai taking place in November, so do take a look at that. You can see the QR code there. I will also, after this, share a link in the chat box. And after this, then we really appreciate your feedback. Any feedback you can give us. There is a survey link there. This will also appear in the chat box shortly, and it also will pop up at the end of the session. Please do give us feedback. We really do take every comment on board, so do use that when you can at the end of today's session. And if you do want to follow up or you forget to ask anything, there are a couple of pages. You can go to our website, which I've put on the page, and you've also got the email address there if you need to ask any sort of questions. Okay, I think we're really at the start of our session, so I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. Just waiting for a few people to join us. And then we will be starting just a couple of seconds. Okay, now we've hit past. I'm going to hand over to our presenter today, Pete and Russell.
Thanks very much, Terry. Much appreciated. Welcome to our webinar today. Just a quick introduction. So my name is Peter. I'm one of the education advisors at Renaissance. So my role is to help schools with their assessments and their data and getting the most out of that data kind of going forward and making some suggestions about how they can use it even better than they're already doing. We're very lucky to be joined by Russell Smart today, who is Deputy Head at the Dubai British School. So Russell is going to be leading our webinar today. And I'll be mentioning a couple of things during the webinar about a couple of products that Russell will be mentioning as well.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name is Russell Smart, as Peter mentioned. I'm Deputy Head at Dubai British School, Jumeriah Park, part of the Salim group of schools. I think I've connected with a few people across Dubai in different places, whether it's on LinkedIn or otherwise. So feel free to reach out if anything that I say over the next over half an hour or so is of interest to you, and I hope it will be sharing the journey. I lead on assessment procedures here at DBSJP, also curriculum and teaching and learning as well. And I'm hoping that I can share with you kind of our journey with assessment here. Yes, using the GR products, NGRT, Accelerate Read, etc., but also kind of how I prioritize what the data shows me, and then how we can turn that into something kind of tangible for teachers to use. And I'm all about teachers working really efficiently and really smart. So I will, as assessment lead, try and give them as much as I can. And it's about them interpreting those numbers, using those numbers to greater effect in the classroom of teaching and learning. And this is the first time I'm in my role. I've led on assessment in the UAE for about the last 10 years now, but this academic year is the first year I've had that joined up thinking with curriculum and teaching and learning as well. And seeing those go hand in hand has been really, this last term has been so powerful for me. Rather than just telling people about the numbers and the data behind it, is then going back to the classroom and seeing what that classroom practice looks like too. So I hope it's useful for you, and some of the top tips I will share later as we go through as well. And for me, it's very much about, I just try to summarize it in these three areas really: how we can collaborate, and I mean that within schools, but also across schools as well. And some of the things I chat about later, kind of this idea came about of us identifying an issue that we had in our school with our data. And I was reaching out to other schools as well to see if they were having the same thing. So that collaboration was really key. And something that, for those of you familiar with the Dubai landscape, probably when I first came to Dubai 13 years ago, it wasn't there. Schools kept themselves to themselves. But now it's much more open for sharing. So collaboration is really key for me. The analysis that we do, and that's not just me as assessment lead, it's what I ask my teachers to do as well, how they interpret the data, what they're sharing. So that's really key for me, and kind of putting some sort of meaning behind those numbers, and then actually what's it look like in the classroom? How are they going to use that to adapt to their teaching, and moving forward with that one? And then what they're acting upon and what that impact will be as well. And at the moment, I'm in the fortunate position, I lead the subject leads here at school. So things like their improvement plans, like what goes into an improvement plan that might be data related, what's teaching and learning related, and how are they acting upon what these sometimes one-off snapshots of data give us. How can they make it really meaningful? So I'm hoping over the next half hour, that's what we'll cover. First of all, a bit of interactivity for you in the chat, maybe. How confident do you feel using data? Particularly, I'm interested about the teaching and learning aspect. Do you look at data in isolation or standalone, or how it actually informs? I don't know if you can maybe give it yourself a rating, say 5 being I'm really confident, I know my stuff, 1 or a 0 being I'm a data novice as such. It'd be good to hear from you in the chat. Just pop a number in for how confident you feel. We'll chat later on as well about how can you like any top tips or quick wins that you might have. We can share those. And again, that collaboration is really important for me to see on today how we can work together on this. I'll let you pop some numbers in as you go through. So I wanted to plug, and it is a bit of a shameless plug, for the Dubai Assessment Network, which I created myself about just over a year ago. I'd say about 18 months ago. And it was born out of the KHDA asking us to, obviously a big push on NGRT and reading data here in Dubai. And then the first couple of times we sat the NGRT, I had lots of question marks, not over the analysis or the numbers that were coming up, but particularly our younger year groups in years 2 and 3 were really struggling to achieve what I would say kind of, I use the word good lightly, I don't mean that in KHDA terms, but that good grading. And I started to ask questions of, was it isolated to us as a school, or was it something that other schools were feeling as well? So via LinkedIn and via different colleagues that I'd worked with over the years, I started to reach out to other schools to see that, and purely just for NGRT purposes, was what we were seeing unique to us, or did it go across the board? And that was how it was born. And what then grew as a result of that. And we had an online meeting for it last year. Our plan more this year, just opportunities for schools to come together to share sometimes challenges, sometimes solutions, but ways of working so we can work together and collaborate really, really smart, I guess. We know that the nature of the GL assessments and NGRT, they give us those international benchmarks. They're really handy for us to compare, certainly here in the UAE, comparing back to schools in the UK for a UK curriculum school, But to have those benchmarks with like for like schools in Dubai for me was quite selfishly, although I did share the data back with people as well, was really key. And I could go back to my senior leaders or go back to our governance and say, look, we're having problems with X, Y, and Z, but the school down the road is having problems with A, B, and C as well. And that started to have that real joined up thinking. As a result of the Dubai Assessment Network and those conversations that took place, often via email and group chats in that way, but we've had the opportunity to meet with colleagues face to face as well. What started to happen was people sharing those best practices, which was really handy for us. We had schools just down the road that I had hardly spoken to talk about how they would deliver, we're focused on NGRT, how they would deliver their NGRT with their youngest children and how that would support them. We had other schools using, I'll talk about accelerated reader later on, but other schools using different resources and different materials where we hadn't looked at it in the same way. We've had access to the products or access to the resources, but just a different way of thinking. That collaboration was really key. So if you want more information on that, I can share that later on as well, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I often post about it, and we will find more opportunities to meet up with regards to that and sharing that collaboration. Here is something that I produced. It's just a snip of some data for what we saw with regards to that collaboration in action from the assessment network. So what I was doing here, the image on the right-hand side was looking to see, there's different schools. That's just a snip of 3 of the schools. Different number of schools take part each time, and this is their NGRT data here, and it's graded against the KHDA gradings for the reading profiles, if you're familiar with those. I've had between about 15 and 20 schools share their data with me, and I'm always completely transparent. By sharing your data with me, you're opening yourselves up with that, so I'll always share our data back with you. It's that transparency as well. Some schools don't want to be named, and we recognize that and respect that as well. So I just and I can't read the word, anonymize it. So I think I've read the word wrong. The school A, the school B, the C. But I'll always say which of those schools are outstanding schools or very good schools. So if you are in Dubai and you're interested in that, we will be doing it again. We've just finished here at DBS. We've just finished our Form A for NGRT, and it gives us a really good insight. You can see just from that very small snip what we were seeing, and full transparency, we're school C on here at the moment. For full transparency there, the things that we were seeing, other schools were experiencing as well, and it really opened up to those conversations, which was really purposeful for me, and that collaboration was really key. And just having those those genuine improvement moments, and I've tried this and this worked really well for me. If you tried it, or I've tried something different that didn't work, but I'm open to more ideas here as well. Just a quick bit of context. If you're not familiar with DBSJP, we're fully inclusive as a school. We are rated outstanding in KHDA terms. And like I mentioned, with my context being academic lead, deputy head academic, or I lead on assessment, teaching, learning, and curriculum, I feel really strong. Our assessment has been recognised BSO and KHDA terms with regards to being outstanding. I've also had the pleasure of working with GL over a number of years as well, who are really open to feedback, and I've really enjoyed sharing that feedback with different representatives, both locally in Dubai, but also via email as well, sharing that. So I feel that our assessment here is in a really strong place, being recognised externally, but it's not our be all and end all. Whilst I will talk about NGRT today and other assessments from GL, I will always go back to teacher professional judgments. These are snapshots, these are one-off moments in time. And I'll use my own daughter as an example. She panics in assessments. Her data is low for full transparency and honesty, but that's not her day-to-day practice. And here at school, whilst I would always fly the flag for assessments as an assessment lead, it's about that full picture. And I know later Peter's going to talk about kind of the wider context with that as well, and what else is available. And so yes, assessment is important to us, but we're not a testing school. It's very much about getting those outstanding results, but we get them in the right way for the children. Bit more about NGRT. I guess this is the numbers part of the presentation rather than the narrative part. I mentioned I try and give my teachers everything they can possibly need and want. and then it's down to them to think about what sits behind these numbers. And we know that it's children. Each of these numbers here has a name. It might be a little Johnny or a little Sally or whoever it might be, but those numbers represent something in that class. So I've just shaded out some of the class names, but the data on there is real. That's our current year 6 data for Form A, based against the KHD expectations with the SAS of 90, 110, 120. So it's all on there. But I give the teachers the context of where their class are at. So you're going to see I've highlighted in yellow the average along the bottom. Straight away, I can see as a class teacher, where is my class compared to everyone else in that year group? Have I got a class using my Cat 4 data, perhaps? Have I got a class who have low verbal battery, or they're going to struggle in these particular areas? Or have I got a class that's high flying? There are a couple of classes on there where the average age of the cohort is 12 years, 10 months, but there's more than one class on there with an average age of 13 years. So what are they getting in their day-to-day reading diet and practice that the other classes aren't getting, or the other classes need more support with as well? And I think that's really important to hold on to. The grid at the bottom is aims more at middle leaders from my side, and that's each year group is identified there. Again, it's real data. I've just taken off which year group is which. And for there, it's about where, as a year leader or a subject leader, where does that data sit with each of those? How is it performing, and how is it shaping towards that whole school picture? We are here at DBSJP with regards to NGRT, specific NGRT, by KHDA terms, we are acceptable. And we were just a couple of % off of good. So our aim is always going to be to get to that good measure when we can. And so it's about what we can do to refine those small steps, those small things that we can put into place to help us. And I know later Peter's going to talk about the reading support pathway. That's been hugely supportive for us, identifying those children's needs and what's going to move them forward. So yes, it is about the numbers. And yes, in regards to our Dubai context, it is about the grading, of course it is. But behind each of those numbers, there is that narrative, and there's real children sat there as well. Just a very quick comparison as well. We've got over the last, this represents just over the academic year. I've shaded it slightly differently so you can track the cohorts going down. And I share this at middle leader level and with class teachers for context as well. So you can track there from Form A24 through to Form C, and then Form A25, a slight shift as that cohort move forward. And I genuinely feel, and I believe those numbers share that as well, that although we've sat behind that acceptable quote unquote measure, the progress that we've made within that measure has been absolutely huge. Cohort to cohort has made progress. Form to form has made progress as well. And I also look at the progress categories as well within the reports, which are so useful to help me to target children within our PPMs, our pupil progress meetings, to see those children that are making the expected progress, or maybe those that are at risk of falling behind as well. So yeah, feeling really positive about the year ahead with this one. And I just think it's been such high profile for us. And Peter, you're also going to talk about maybe why it's been so high profile, what people can do about it.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. I know you mentioned it already there, but in fact, I actually had a query from a school in Dubai this morning about how to access the interactive kind of reading support pathway for their school. So I think it's something that we've looked at and developed quite a lot with NGRT over the past 12 months. I know a lot of schools have found this really useful. So I thought it'd be a good point within Russell's presentation here today to mention this and just to highlight this as well, because it's really powerful and really useful for schools. So just to say, when you're on our TestWise platform and you run an NGRT report, it will automatically take you to the interactive report. If you scroll down to where it says recommendations and click on recommendations, it will then take you to your school's own kind of reading support pathway, which will be populated for your students who've sat that NGRT. So you can see here on this grid, looking at those scores for sentence completion and passage comprehension within the NGRT and where those students lie on this grid. So obviously those students in the bottom left, those kind of emerging readers, they're the ones you probably want to support straight away. You know, they are probably on your radar already. But if you click on, for example, the emerging readers, you will then be able to see, obviously, the list of students that you have as part of that emerging reader list. And then on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see student story. And then there are key questions and next steps. In terms of those next steps, it will direct you to go to our generic reading support pathway that's available on our training page that looks like this. So you can see here are 10 generic profiles of students, color-coded obviously to match your students in your profile as well, and mapped against that, those Stay9 scores for sentence completion and passage comprehension. So what you can then do, you can click on any of those students. So for example, and it'll give you a student like Kaya in this instance, and it will provide some key questions to ask about students like that in your school. And it will also provide some next steps. So you can see there kind of at the bottom, next steps, and that child, for example, in this instance, may need. So it will give you some possible next steps with a child like that. And it has that for any of our profiles there that you can use. Obviously, not just the reading support pathway, but obviously you'll want to use your individual student report for teachers as well, that will provide that further detail and information in. So I just thought it'd be a good point to mention that, because I know it's a really useful tool that a lot of schools are finding really useful with the NGRT.
Thanks, Peter. And from our perspective at DBS, it's been hugely useful. It's something that we came to probably a bit later than other schools did. But last academic year, we really pushed it out to teachers and to teams there. We also have, as part of our pupil progress meeting, we have our Cat 4 outcomes on page 1 as like our context, but page 2 is NGRT outcomes. More than happy to share what our pupil progress meeting kind of documents look like if that's useful for people. But on there, we indicate where the children sit with regards to their reading support pathway. So it's really kind of at the forefront of what teachers are doing. And it's important for our teachers. I know it's kind of different in primary to secondary, but it's about reading not just taking place within that reading lesson as well. And I know secondary have had a really big push. We're a through school right through to year 13 here. Secondary have had a really big push at looking at that reading impact outside of the reading lessons as well. A quick nod to Accelerated Reader. We've had it in place here for many years here at DBSJP, but I'm be the first to say we haven't utilized it alongside NGRT until probably the last year or so. So it's very much from our side, it's the reading for pleasure, it's the quizzes, the fun, it's the millionaire word counts, it's that recognition of reading as well. We do the Star Reader assessment where the children can get their ZPD, and that helps the children select their library books as such which they can take home. And then up until recently, that's kind of where it stopped. But then we had some really good training during our induction in August. From Renaissance themselves, they came into school and they talked to us about actually going beyond just looking at that ZPD and looking to see where those targets are. And literally just a couple of days ago, I was running the reports for teachers, again, trying to make it, I don't want them going after way to find all the information. I want to be giving them as much as I can. It's about the teachers knowing what their class need. And it has a real nice breakdown on those reports, which I think Peter's going to mention later, of showing what are the priorities of this class, what does this class need, or what do these individuals need to really push them forward. And that really helped. Going back to NGRT and those KHDA parameters, we had children who were kind of on the cusp of the 90 or on the cusp of 110, but were struggling to get pushed over into that next SAS bracket. So using Accelerated Reader alongside NGRT really did help us. I know there's a lot of text on that screen there, but really looking to see what was it that the NGRT reports were identifying. Who were the children where the gaps are? That use of the reading support pathway was really key for us. But then because NGRT takes place 3 times a year, what was going to happen in between? We can't just have this dead time of nothing happening. So we were looking to see, we were tracking engagement with reading. We were tracking, sometimes just is down to enjoyment of reading or who they were reading with through Accelerated Reader as well. It meant we had some really good tangible conversations with parents if children weren't doing the quizzes, or if children were stuck on a particular genre of text and they were only going down one route of books that they were choosing, or maybe they just weren't challenging themselves. The ZPD obviously gives quite a wide band ultimately of books that they can choose between. Were they always going for that lower band of book? Do we need to push them more to that upper band as well? So yeah, definitely a resource that we are developing and utilizing, but really trying to work it alongside the NJATI better this academic year. And seeing some really nice parallels, actually running the reports for Star Reader this week, seeing some really nice parallels across the year groups with the NJATI outcomes when you compare the SAS as well. Peter.
Great, thanks, Russell. So I'm sure potentially a lot of you on the call today might be familiar with Accelerated Reader or heard of Accelerated Reader before, but I just thought I'd take this opportunity just to mention a little bit about what Accelerated Reader is. So it is a practice product that we provide that helps to monitor, manage, and motivate reading for students, and really helps with that developing a reading culture within the school. So as you can see kind of on the screen here, essentially what students will do is will quiz themselves, or whether that's physical or digital books. And then following that, students will be able to track their individual goals. And essentially they can gain ownership of their learning and their reading success. So it becomes an activity for empowerment, and students can really see their success in real time. And it really is a great motivational tool to help them to go further. So on the screen here, you can see a snapshot of a student's page. If we look at maybe a snapshot from the teacher's side, teachers can help to kind of create goals around whether it's comprehension or engaged reading time, students' reading levels, and teachers can really and easily track students' progress in Accelerated Reader at a glance, freeing up their own time as well. And with Accelerated Reader, in terms of the reports that, Russell's already mentioned already, but in terms of the reports there are lots of different reports that you can generate. The metrics reported in the reports are very clear and concise in those reports. So for example, here, you could look at the school summary report, and it gives a great snapshot of kind of the site data and usage from the students. And then obviously, once you've got that data and once you've got that information, you obviously want to celebrate that reading success from the students. And there are lots of different ways, obviously, that you can do this, but it's really important to use that data to develop that rich culture of reading within the school. And whether that's a case of, looking at participation levels on Accelerated Reader, or the number of points that the students earned, or the number of words that they've read. I think it's really important to make sure that is prominent within the school and developing that reading culture. And I know, Russell, you mentioned before actually about your school is doing this as well.
Yeah, so we we have our Millionaire Readers display, and so children get celebrated with a certificate on their display, but every single classroom you will see something similar. These aren't pictures from DBS, but you will see something similar to these. So maybe on a display board or even on the side of a cupboard door, participation in quizzes, points being scored, and just that real celebration of reading as well. And that recognition of, particularly with the word counts, obviously year 6 is maybe not quizzing so much because the books are so much longer, but that recognition of that achievement and those points that they've scored from that as well. It's also worth mentioning as well, Peter, when you talked about the reports, that was really key for me running the Star Reader reports about identifying those children who were at risk of needing intervention or requiring an urgent intervention. I think in the past, I sometimes put that back on the teachers to identify which children that might be. And 9 times out of 10, yes, they probably got it correct. But the fact it was in that report and really detailed for us when I ran it this week of like, actually, was that child on that teacher's radar? May not have been, but he or she certainly is now. So yeah, really useful on that side. I mentioned briefly already kind of our ecosystem that we have here. So NJIT I've talked lots about accelerated reading. We do Cat 4 in years 4 and 6. We also have it on entry for year 5. And I know with a Dubai context that these assessments are as much a KHDA requirement as much as they are a useful assessment as well. But I do really hold on to that teacher assessment and observation as they go through. And it's so important to understand, yes, we have this massive suite behind us of data. We have that test-wise dashboard, but that teacher judgment, what's that teacher seeing day in, day out? So I just put a couple of bullet points here that no one test tells that story. I really found it useful this week running the Star Reader reports alongside the NGRT reports. And like I said, full transparency, it's the first time I've done it in that level of detail, but it really helped us to either A, say, yes, child A and child A here, they're similar, or maybe child A in one particular test did better than another test. So having that triangulation of data was so key for us as well. I guess for the how they learn best was great with the Cat 4 results, but also that we were really pushing our NGRT last year, and like I said, really pushing for that good grading. But then we looked at the children's engagement for accelerated reader, and those children that were not making the progress in NGRT were also 9 times out of 10 those children not actively participating in accelerated reader. So it meant we had conversations with parents, and that full transparency at PTCs or parent meetings to say, look, this child is capable of this. We know he's capable of that because of the Cat 4. He's achieving this in NGRT at the moment, but also at the moment he's not quizzing on accelerated reader. And that gave us that really kind of joined up thinking to go not just to parents, but also to each other as teachers as well. And that clarity for me to sit in front of our governors 3 times a year and talk about our NGRT data, but then also sit behind it and say, but look at their Cat 4. We're an inclusive school. Our average SAS for this year group is X, whatever that might be. But let's look at our average SAS of their NGRT outcomes. And that's a real nice celebration in most cases, And I've mentioned about the interventions as well. The reports are so detailed, and for some teachers, that may be overwhelming, and because there might almost be too much information on there as well. But it has really helped us to look at those targeted interventions. As part of our PPMs, our pupil progress meetings, I asked teachers to identify groups within their classes and what the intervention is going to be. It could be simple as gender. It might be Emirati. It might be a particular group who are, maybe they're not at SAS of 90 or they're pushing for SAS of 120. But all of that is logged and tracked and evaluated as we go through our PPM process. I put here, and I'm kind of going to skip my 3-step model in a way of just keeping it simple. If you're a teacher who does not like or has a fear of data, it needs to be simple. And if teachers can give you a 1-sentence summary of where their class are at or where they want their class to go to, for me, that's enough. It tells me that they know their class. Keeping it simple will give teachers the things to work on, the priorities. We have action plans, as I'm sure you all do. We have subject action plans, we have year group action plans, but I don't want to see action plans with 25, 30 different priorities on them, because they're not a priority. That's just day-to-day teaching, isn't it? But if a year leader or a subject leader can show me an action plan with 3 or 4 priorities, that's going to take them the entire year to achieve, but they have a clear timeline of how they're going to do it. That's far more important to me. Teachers, maybe they're not a middle leader. If our teachers on the ground can articulate those priorities, that's even better. So sharing those with staff and making that part of the discussion as well in our staff meetings. We're doing this today. We're doing this because of this, and this is the goal that we're aiming for as we go through. So yeah, without skipping the collect, interpret, and act, it is about keeping it simple for me, and really just aligning it to the school priorities and making the data work for you and whatever your priorities might be. And it might be that your priorities aren't NGRT or Cat 4, whatever it might be, but just that one liner. Can you keep it down to that a sentence or a headline for them? I know not everyone on the webinar today will be doing visible learning or be part of visible learning, but it was something that we as a school and Talim bought into massively last year. And I think at this point it's worth mentioning how we've really worked to develop assessment capable learners. So it's great our teachers can articulate assessment. It's great our teachers can articulate scores and things like that, but how well do our children know what they're doing? I don't mean here little Johnny goes home and says to his mum, I'm going to stay 9.5 or I'll stay 9.6. But if he can go home and say, I achieved this today and my short-term goal is to get to that point, that's so powerful. For those who aren't familiar, I won't give you a full CPD session on visible learning, but for those who aren't familiar with visible learning, an effect size of 0.4 is kind of your expected effect size in one academic year. So for children to be assessment capable learners actually has an effect size of 0.75. So very nearly they can make double the amount of progress in one academic year. But to do that, they need to know their learning journey. They need to know what their starting points are. They need to know what success looks like. And I know many of us probably share success criteria at the start of lessons or beginning of units of work and stuff. But do children know what success will look like? And also within that, what can they do already and what can't they do yet? And we celebrate what they can't do at the moment because it's very much they can't do it at the moment, but they will be able to do it hopefully soon. Obviously, making it student friendly, make it age appropriate. I would not be having the same conversation with a year two about their NGRT outcomes as I would with a year six. But I would still want that year two to recognize what his or her next steps are. In the same way, I would want the year six to recognize that as well. And I mentioned there about those short-term goals. We look over those assessments. It could be a written paper. It might be a maths assessment that we've done, and it might not be something computer-based, but having that assessment in front of them, and it's not just about the right or the wrong answers. It's about the children knowing and taking ownership of what they're going to do and then how they're going to improve on that as well. I've mentioned some of these already. I'll give you a moment just to, these are some quick wins. If you can take something away with you today, hopefully it'll be one of these. So I've mentioned the data one-liners. I wonder, whatever your role is on the call now, whether you're an assessment leader or a class teacher, a leader elsewhere in the school, how many of your staff or your team can articulate in just one sentence or one headline a statement about their class, about where they're going to, or what their focus area might be? I've got the second idea there about connecting those ideas directly to teaching. The data that sits behind all these reports is absolutely amazing, but it's 100% meaningless unless we then see it in the classroom. So if children are struggling with a particular concept, how are you going to address that? Is that going to be in your cold tasks or lesson starters? Is it going to be time that you make up during intervention times? Or, there's little times that we have here and there that we find in our curriculum. I know they're precious and we don't have lots of them, but making real kind of maximizing the time that we have the best we can. And the last one I've just finished with really is really empowering the students in an age appropriate way. How are they using the data? How are they setting their own goals? I can think about a writing lesson I was observing this morning. And in that lesson, they had no more than, I'd say, about 6 different elements of success, different success criteria that they had to meet that the teacher had created for them. And it was great, the teacher had created them. But as part of that co-constructed success criteria, all children were asked to add their own target on as well that they could achieve within that lesson. It was very focused on what are you going to achieve in this lesson here and now. It might be over a unit of work, it might be over a half a term, but children taking that ownership is really key for their learning journey too. So I guess for me and from us with Peter as well, it's knowing kind of what are your quick wins or what are your takeaways from the session. By all means, reach out if you want to get in touch with regards to the Device Assessment Network. Like I said, I want it to become more active. I want more opportunities to meet as well, but also opportunities I know. And I know there's a reminder about those sessions coming up from MGL and Renaissance that they've got as well. Just those opportunities that we can connect with each other across Dubai and the UAE as well. So I hope that was useful. Peter, I'm going to hand back to you.
Yeah, no, that was really useful, Russell. Thanks very much. And some really interesting points, and the quick wins I really like as well. I think you mentioned before about, the amount of data that sometimes teachers have, and sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming with the amount of data and information there. And I think those quick wins, I think, are really useful in trying to condense that data into a couple of one-liners or something like that for each of the students within the classroom. I think is great. So yeah, really useful. I really enjoyed that, Russell. Thanks very much. For those people just on the webinar today, there is an opportunity to ask some questions. So if you'd like to post any questions now into the Q&A or into the chat, we'll hopefully have some time to answer those. And also, I know my colleague Terry's going to put up a poll in a second about whether you would like to be contacted for more information. So I know Russell's mentioned a couple of our assessment and practice products today, so NGRT and Accelerated Reader. So if you would like further information about one or both of those products, if you could fill out that poll, and one of us in the team will be able to get back to you and contact you about that. Also, as Russ just mentioned, as my colleague Terry mentioned at the beginning of today's webinar, we do have some upcoming workshops and a conference. So the workshop is tomorrow, so not much time left there, but I think there is still an opportunity to register for that workshop tomorrow. So if you aren't aware of it or do want to register for that, there is still an opportunity to do so. And that's tomorrow. But we also do have our UAE conference in Dubai on the 14th of November. So do register your interest for that as well. Also, just a lot of the information today, obviously, you can get from our website. And if you do have further questions, if you're interested in anything that was said today or have any questions about the products that were mentioned, do email us. We're more than happy to respond and get back to you as quickly as possible to answer any of those. And I know, we've talked about a couple of those assessments and practice products today, and through kind of Renaissance, we do have lots of assessment and practice products to help you and support you understanding your students better and how to support them and make sure they're making the progress that they hopefully should be making within your schools. So if you would like any further information about any of those, obviously do let us know as well. But we do have a range of assessments and practice products to help you going forward. I'll just take a moment there just to have a look and just check in terms of questions. We do also have the SurveyMonkey feedback form, which again, my colleague Terry mentioned at the beginning as well, which she has just posted into the chat. So if you can spare just a couple of minutes of your time, I know obviously you're all very busy, but if you can spend a couple of minutes of your time filling in that SurveyMonkey form, it really helps us going forward and with these tailoring these webinars as we go on as well. In terms of questions, I can't see any in the chat. There was one question in the Q&A box about access arrangements. That might be something for us just to follow up with you. I mean, I don't know if you want to add anything in terms of access arrangements or something that you do, Russell, in your school, but I think that's probably something for us to follow up with an email and suggestions for that one. But can't see any other questions in the chat at the moment. But if you do have any questions before we finish today, do post them. Got another minute or two to add them in.
No, yeah, I can't add anything else, Peter, about the access arrangements, but I would just say, look, I would just look at it as a whole with that particular child and what's right for that child, and then looking to see how you can compare that with other either test results or things like CAT4 as well.
Yeah, and as Russell mentioned at the beginning, the assessment data that we provide is great, but it obviously just is that one point in time, that snapshot. It's really important that teacher judgment to get that. The teachers are the ones that see the students every day. They're the ones who are going to know their student best, and to have that full picture of the student as well. So use as much information and data as you have on those students. That will hopefully help in supporting them. Just checking in the Q&A in the chat. So no questions I can see at the moment, but if anyone does have any questions kind of following today's webinar, do feel free to kind of send them in. More than happy to answer any of those. I'll head back over to Terry just to see if there's any final points or anything before we finish.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Russell. That was a great session. I hope everyone enjoyed this afternoon's session. Do take a look at the links that I've shared in the chat for the survey, but also if you are interested in those events, we're always putting events on our website, so do take a look at those as well. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us live. We really appreciate it. And I think that's it for now. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon, and thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you.